Wonderful. Now, I'm going to ask you, what have been some of your experiences traveling with music and performing? What have you done career wise with music and traveling and performing?
Um, the most the most fun I ever had, the biggest learning experience was road managed and open shows with Ramblin' Jack Elliott, who's a folk legend. He's still going. He's just had his 80th birthday recently. Ramblin' Jack was um, he was the guy. If you don't know anything about Woody Guthrie, this song "This Land Is Your Land" he wrote, and actually it was a protest song. They leave out a few verses that are
Okay.
they dumb that down to teach you at school and stuff. Uh, but Woody Guthrie was the songwriter, the voice of America, of the working people, and just had a lot of great stuff. Anyhow, towards the end of his career, he was getting sick, and again I can't remember his. I should have reviewed. I should have had my review sheet so I could remember all these names.
You're doing a
But
pretty good
you
job
can't
without
you
it.
can't ask me if you there's I have it all up here. It's slow access. Anyhow, the last 10 years of Woody's life, he was bedridden, and his mind was sharp, but he could not talk, or obviously couldn't perform anymore. But the last trip he made across country, Ramblin' Jack showed up at his door and went on this last sort of. It wasn't a proper tour like you'd think today. It was a lot of just getting by and playing for tips and getting out to the coast. And they went to Will Gear's ranch out in Topanga Canyon, and they split up. But Woody even told Jack that he played and sang Woody stuff better than Woody could play or sing himself. Jack wasn't much of a writer, but he was a fantastic interpreter. And he went off to Europe, and a lot of you'll see interviews with Mick Jagger and McCartney, and where we'd say Ramblin' Jack Elliott because he was this genuine American uh, singer out there, and that was during their skiffle boom with Lonnie Donegan and stuff, where they were trying to do American songs, but it was really jumpy, and Jack was the real deal. Anyhow, when he came back to the States, is when he became a legend in his absence, because that folk boom happened right before the Beatles, like early '60s, the whole Greenwich Village thing with Dave Van Ronk and all those guys in the Greenwich Village, and Dylan and Dylan was at Woody's house when Jack showed up, and then Dylan was enamored with Jack, and they hung out together and got apartments nearby. And that's actually, I mentioned it before, uh, Dylan was trying to be the new Woody Guthrie, but then even Dave Van Ronk, who was called the Pope of Greenwich Village, told him there's already a guy that does it way better than you'll ever do it. And that's what actually spurred Dylan on he had to figure a new game out
Really?
once the Jack. Anyhow, so that's a little bit. I won't go on and on about Jack. It's a good movie, The Ballad of Ramblin' Jack Elliott. His daughter made a few years back. And anyway, I got a chance to meet him a few times through some mutual friends at shows out in L.A. And then it was very funny. At one show at McCabe's, a great folk music or any kind of music venue in Santa Monica, on Santa Monica Boulevard, or on Pico. Cripes, I can't even remember that now. Uh, I was watching him play, and I had a thought. I felt like I'm going to work with that guy. One of those weird moments. And not much longer after that, my mutual friend Charlie Parker, not the hep jazz cat. He was long dead before that. Charlie Parker was a boat builder, but he called me and says, "Were you serious about?" I mentioned it to him. I go, "Yeah, tell Jack." After I had that thought, I go, "Well, tell Jack if you ever need somebody," because I guess his motorhome burned up. His wife was sick and in the hospital, and he called up one day and said, "Were you serious?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, what kind of car do you have? Is it a reliable car? I go, "Do you smoke?" I go, "No, I don't smoke." And then he said, "Okay, well, don't tell him you're a musician. He hates musicians." Like, okay. Probably just because he doesn't want to be bothered. And so I said, "Yeah." And then a few days later, Jack called me. It was like early Saturday morning, and I'm laying in bed. And the old answering machines where you hear what they're saying on there. And I was kind of in shock that because I really didn't. It's never going to happen. He said needed somebody to pick him up, and he left this lengthy message, and I called him back, and I picked him up appropriately at the John Wayne Airport, and he thought I was a different guy. I said, "Well, Jack, I'll wear my black cowboy hat. You'll find me at the airport." And got up to me and says, "I thought you were going to be a lot bigger." But we hit it off good, and we opened shows for. I think that show was opening for the Everly Brothers, and got to open shows for John Prine and Merle Haggard, and did cowboy poetry gatherings. Actually, that's where I met local icon Gail Steiger for the first time, was in Alpine, Texas, at the poetry gathering out there. And so that was my, I got to meet a lot of people, a lot of heroes. He's one step away, that degree thing of meeting. He's like one degree away of pretty much all my heroes. When Johnny Cash wanted to start writing Western songs, he consulted Jack, because Jack knew he was a cowboy himself and knew all the proper terminology of cowboys and horses and all that. At age 15, he left home. He grew up, made his own legend. His real name is Elliot Adnapose. He's the son of a Brooklyn doctor.
Okay.
So and he's a real short guy. So, and then here comes Bob Dylan, who's actually Robert Zimmerman, a suburban kid from northern Minnesota, Hibbing, and he had his whole story of I did this, that, the other in the West, but it was all fake. It was made up stories, and Jack did, but they lived it. So to be a part of that, and just to hear Woody stories and Cisco Houston stories and Leadbelly stories, and on up to the crazy 60s. He lived up near San Francisco, so Jerry Garcia would hang out at his house, and it just was those were good times.